After leaving Attack Animal Academy, let's jump right into another Pony Canyon game. This time we were looking at Ultima Exodus, which is the third game, I guess you could say, from developed by Origin and published by Pony Canyon, and was released in 1989. This is the third game in the series. Exodus is also the name of the game's principal antagonist. This was originally released in 1983, and it was the first Ultima game published by Origin Systems. Originally developed for the Apple II, Exodus was ported to 13 other platforms, including the NES. Exodus featured pretty revolutionary graphics for the time, being the first computer RPG to display animated characters. Also, Exodus differs from the previous games in that players now direct the actions of a party of 4 characters rather than just one. We now battle groups of enemies on a separate battle screen where we have to understand weapons and magic systems and employ rudimentary tactics in order to overcome each opponent, as opposed to the system in the previous 2 games in which the player is simply depicted as trading blows with one opponent on the main map until either is defeated. Enemies are on the overworld map and can be seen and avoided, whilst enemies in dungeons are random. The party of 4 you get is chosen at the beginning of the game, and we can choose from 11 different classes, which include the fighter, the paladin, the cleric, the wizard, the ranger, the thief, the barbarian, the lark, the illusionist, the druid, and the alchemist. Each class has a specified race between 5 different races, and the default race for each class is the recommended race, but this can be edited along with attribute points for each character. The races determine stat growth. Some races will allow certain stats to be maxed out, while others limit stats to half of the allowed amount. Certain stats, such as wisdom and intelligence, determine what spells you are able to obtain with what class. For the most part, all classes are built around 4 main classes with very minor differences, the 4 main classes being the fighter, the cleric, the wizard, and the thief. Fighters are strong in melee and defense but have no spells, but they can also equip the most weapons and armor. Thief type is good at resisting traps that may be in dungeons, but are rather limited to their equipment. Clerics have healing spells and spells strong against the undead, but are limited to weak weapons and armor. And wizards have strong offensive magic, but are limited to weak weapons and armor, just like you might expect. After Ultima 2, The Revenge of the Enchantress was set on Earth, the story of Exodus centers on a quest back in Caesarea, the world of Ultima. The player's mission is to destroy the final remnant of the evil Mondane and Minax. The game is named for its chief villain Exodus, a creation of Minax and Mondane, that the series later describes as neither human nor machine. Although Exodus appears on the cover of the game as a demonic figure, it is not encountered at the game ends as such, and is never exactly clear what it is. At the beginning of the game, Exodus is terrorizing the land of Caesarea from his stronghold on the Isle of Fire, known as Fire Island. In Ultima Online, the player character is summoned by Lord British to defeat Exodus and thus embarks on a quest that takes him to the land of Ambrosia, to the depths of the dungeons of Caesarea to receive powerful magic branding marks, to find the mysterious Time Lord, and finally to the Isle of Fire to confront Exodus in his lair. The game ends immediately upon Exodus's defeat, but unlike many games in the genre, Exodus cannot simply be killed in battle by a strong party of adventurers, but only through clever puzzle solving and by paying attention to the many clues given throughout the game. At the end of the game, players were instructed to report thy victory to Origin. Those who did so received a certificate of completion autographed by Richard Garriott. Although this is the last game in the series to take place in Old Caesarea, places in the game such as Ambrosia and the Island of Fire make cameo appearances in later games, namely Ultima 7. This one, very, very typical NES RPG. Very Final Fantasy-ish, very Dragon Warrior-ish, at least for the most part. Battle system, not quite so much. But, you know, it's not too bad. Upon first or second look, because I know I've looked at this before, this would almost be one that I would be willing to let's play. I think I could get into this one. The NES version that came out 5 years after the Apple II version features modified graphics and a new soundtrack, considerable alterations to gameplay, significantly expanded dialogue, only a small instruction booklet rather than map and manuals, and an endgame sequence after defeating Exodus.